Subliminal TV.
Hello, welcome back. This is Eric with Subliminal TV. So today I have a story. I was around 11 years old when I got my first motorcycle. It was the little YSR50. You have to be OG to remember those things. One day, I get home from school. Now mind you, I have a go-kart before the motorcycle, and I'm crazy about this go-kart. So one day I get home from school, my dad has the motorcycle sitting outside, and I'm all excited, it's my new toy, right? But then he tells me, but by the way, the go-kart, no more, there's no more go-kart. So I just lose my... It took me some getting used to not have a go-kart anymore, but eventually I get past it. So my dad had a Ninja E1 ZX6, big heavy thing. And eventually, by the time I was like 13 years old, I began riding that bike. So I jumped all the way from this YSR50 to the 600. And I'll never forget, I was short, so I used to have a friend who was taller to ride on the back with me to help me kind of hold it up when I stopped because it was really heavy. And I remember like kind of leaning over a little bit. So for some reason, to this day, I don't know why, but I was fascinated with the Ninja 250. And I kept begging my dad to get me one. He actually bought me one, so I jumped from the 50cc up to the 600cc, then I went back down to the 250cc. And actually that ended up being a bike that I had a pretty bad accident on. By the time I was say 13, 14 years old, something like that, I had a bad accident, stayed in the hospital for a good while, got home, was on bed rest for a good while, and I swore I would never ride another motorcycle. And guess what? I get out of the hospital, about a year passed, and one day my dad leaves his keys in the motorcycle. And I said, you know what? I'm gonna try this thing again. I get on this motorcycle, ride around the neighborhood, and before you know it, this drug that I just can't get enough of, I'm right back on bikes. Not long after that, my dad goes and buys me another bike. It was a 600 this time, the ZX6R. Never forget, that was a beast of a bike for its time. And that was the bike that I really started to hone my skills on and get pretty good at riding. So I would learn how to ride wheelies on that bike. I never forget, like I learned how to I was power wheeling it first, and then I learned how to bring it up in first gear, and eventually I learned to get it in second gear, and then eventually after that I learned how to bring it up in first gear and change the gears. Once I learned how to change gears in the air, I would take the wheelie for further distances. Also, during that time, I began I'm gonna say around 15 years old, 16. I used to drag race, and I'm not gonna lie, I was pretty good. I had a pretty undefeated record back then. And so I get into cars, I sell the bike around the time I'm 17, 18, I don't have a bike anymore. I'm into cars, I get one car, then another car, then another car. So I'm so into cars that I never even get back into the motorcycles. Then fast forward years later, I get another bike, which is a Yamaha R1. And I love that bike. Talking about easy to wheel. It was like a 2004-ish model. And I had this bike maybe in 2006, 7. I only keep it for a little while, and eventually I sell that bike.
So I went a long time without having a bike, and I'm really into cars, so I got into cars and I just did that for a long time. And I don't know, out of nowhere, I don't know what, when, how, why, but the Ducati 1098 came up on my radar, and I don't even think I was looking for a motorcycle. But when I saw that bike, I knew like if I ever were to get another bike, that would be it. And so I looked at them, and I even drove to Ohio to look at one. I met the guy. It was a track bike. He had a few pieces for street, like the headlights and things like that, but he didn't have all the plastics. So I would have had to do a lot of work on it to make it street legal again. I drove over there thinking that we can maybe negotiate. We talked about negotiating, but when I got there, we just couldn't see eye to eye.
I went all the way up there, and we couldn't really agree on what I could give him for the bikes for it to make sense. The price that the guy wanted, it made more sense for me to just get one that was already clean. So I
walked away from that bike, and I never worried about it again. I just kind of moved on from it, and some more time came up, and I thought about it like, man, remember that bike? Started looking at them again.
A whole year goes by, maybe more. I had a passion for it, then I won't. I had a passion for it, then I won't. So I wasn't even worried about it anymore. I let it go. So then I saw one on Marketplace. And so I messaged this guy, and I think that he may have been getting a lot of messages of people who were just wasting his time playing around, because he must have not thought that I was serious, because he wasn't engaging with me as a serious customer. So what I did, I passed on by that one, found the next one, this one, messaged the guy, and I told him, man, hey, look, if this bike checks out and it's what you say it is, I'm gonna get the bike, period, point blank. I'm not playing. If it checks out, I'm gonna get that bike. We ended up doing a FaceTime. I sent him a deposit. I planned for my trip. I went down there, got the bike, and that's the video you see of I bought a Ducati here on my channel. Listen, I haven't looked back. Again, I've ridden motorcycles my whole life. Now that I have this bike, all the time that I didn't ride, I'm like, how did you miss all of this time, dude? How did you miss all of this time, dude? I get such a sense of joy, adrenaline, and just, I giggle. I literally giggle sometimes when I'm on this bike and I'm just going up in the mountains. It's a beautiful thing. So now I have this bike. You guys hear those cars passing? I got a garage door. But yeah, it's a beautiful thing. I'm glad that I got the bike. And I don't know if I'm gonna go back to not having a bike. I don't know. God willing, I little bit an old man, I'll get a cruiser. I don't know, but I always wanna have a bike. I'm just thinking, how did I go all those years without a bike? But I'm back. So that's my story, man. That's how I got into bikes. So if this is your first time here, again, I'm Eric. This is Subliminal TV you're watching. If this is your first time here, I just want to make sure you understand that this is not a motovlogging channel. When you come here and you see a motorcycle, I'm into motorcycles, I'm into cars, I'm into RVs and traveling, I'm into film, photography, that type of thing. But hey, if you're into any of those things and you want to give me a subscribe, a like, thumbs up, I would appreciate it. It don't cost you nothing. Peace. Ride safely. By the way, what's your story? How old were you when you first started riding? What was your first bike? And do you still ride? And if so, what do you ride now?
Subliminal